Dun, 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 dun. Good idea, Einstein. Let's get the party started. Number lines. They'll almost certainly appear on the exam. There are a few skills related to it you're going to need to know for the exam. The first skill is graphing inequalities. Suppose we began with the following inequality. X is greater than 5. How would I go about graphing that on my number line? Well, first, I would put an open circle around 5, indicating that 0.5 is not included in my solution set. And then I would shade in everything to the right that is greater than 5 on the number line, because anything to the right on a number line is greater in value. Don't confuse that with, say, -2 and -9, which can trip students up sometimes. Given that 2 is a smaller absolute value number, they might think that's the lesser valued result, but that's incorrect. -2 is to the right of -9 on the number line, therefore it is greater in value. Let's look at another example. How about I had the inequality x is less than or equal to -9. How would I graph that in this situation? Well, in this case, 9 is included in the solution set, given the equal in the less than and equal. So I draw a closed circle to indicate that -9 is included. And then, since x is less than in this case, it's everything to the left of that -9 point. Let's label these 2 points. -9 is A, 5 is B. Another skill set you'll have to learn for the exam is the midpoint. What is the midpoint of segment AB? The midpoint is simply going to be the average of the two endpoints. In this case, that's A plus B divided by 2. The sum of the two endpoints divided by the number of elements, or the count, which is only 2 in this case. And that would work out to -9 plus 5 over 2, which is -4 over 2, which is a midpoint of -2. So our midpoint actually is the -2 point shown on the number line. Let's suppose we're given the following number line with the segments AB, CD, and BC. And we're given the information that the ratio of BC to AC is 2 to 5, and we're given the distances shown from AC and BD. And the question would ask us, what is the segment CD's length? Well, here's a good example where we're not working with the midpoint, but we're given unequal ratios of lengths that we have to use to help us determine the answer. And we see we have an overlapping segment, BC. So in order to determine CD, we will have to find that overlapping segment, BC length. And we'll use our ratios to help us determine that. We know the ratio of BC to AC is 2 to 5. Likewise, we know AC, provided by the diagram, equals 10 in length. So essentially, 2 to 5 should equal some missing segment length BC to the actual length of AC, which is 10. And you might look at that and quickly determine the answer is 4 units for the length of BC. That makes that ratio proportion correct. And I could set that up in a proportion equation as well, as follows. 2 divided by 5 equals the length of BC, the overlapping segment, divided by 10. And I would cross multiply to say 5 BC equals 20. Divide both sides by 5, and BC equals 4 units. The same answer, looking at it through the proportion equation set up algebraically. Now, at this stage, you have found your BC segment length, which we know is 4. And given that's an overlapping segment with BD that we know is 15, we can actually solve for CD. So let's set up the segment addition as an equation, which is an important part of developing and solving these problems. I know BD equals the segment BC plus the segment CD from the number line above. I'm given 15 for the length of BD, so I can now plug in the numerical values I know, and I solved, given my ratio information, I solved for the value of BC, which is 4 units, and now I'm only left with CD to resolve. I can solve that equation to determine the segment length of CD, subtracting 4 from both sides, is 15 minus 4, which equals 11 units. And that would be my solution. And this is a typical problem you might see on the exam where you're using proportions to find a missing segment length, and you're using the summation of different segment length components to figure out perhaps an overlapping segment or determine some missing segment length that you need.
That was a problem. I never had. We'll do the balance of that element. We'll move it back.